Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I am going to do something that I have mixed feelings about. We're going to take a drive and I'm going to step into the Wayback Machine and I am going to take y'all back along the road that I grew up on Paradox Lake, North Shore Road. When I was growing up there were only two permanent residents on that road, us and a woman by the name of Esther Claus, who was an older lady. And I'm not sure how much trouble we might get into because it's all private now, most of it. But I'll give you a hint about some of the places that I grew up and that I know so well. So here goes. So this is a look at our starting point. It is actually the Screwen River public fishing stream, and we're going to go into Severance. I think it's a hamlet because I'm not sure it qualifies as a village. There's not that many people. There is a post office, and we'll get to that when we get to it. So here we go. Am I breathing hard somewhere else? So we're heading up the ramp onto Route 73. To the left is the Northway, and to the right is Severance. And as far as I can remember, this bridge was always there. There's somebody there. They're waiting for somebody. So on the left up here, this big red farmhouse, that was our art teacher used to live there. And the White House on the left used to be the post office before it moved. And on the right is Robin's old house. My friend Robin Merkel used to live right there. And on the left is the new post office, newer. It started out as a candy store and a gas station, and I can remember as a child we went in there and Mother would buy some penny candy. And this is our lake. This is Paradox Lake. The beach on the right is a private beach, and it's for Severance people only. You had to buy a membership. And the White House was an English lady that we used to go see, and that was her summer camp. Now coming up here, you'll see this little triangle in the middle, and that was where our sign was. Our campground sign was right there where the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit was. And here we go. A lot of this has changed. A lot of these old roads were logging roads, and now they're homes. camps. There wasn't a whole lot in here. A lot of these houses when I was growing up weren't there. I think that was Sky High. Yeah, that road to the right, I used to ride my horse out that way. Out to Sky High. And then coming through here, remember this one section on the right that where the power lines were. I saw my first turkey, saw the first wild turkey I ever saw was coming through there. Thought it was an emu. But when you're 6, 7 years old, everything looks big. This road was not paved when I grew up. I'm not quite sure when they did it. I do know that when I started school, the first couple of years I was in a station wagon. They picked me up in a station wagon. They literally had to widen the road in order to bring the big school bus in here. And this curve was always this curve. It was a doozy. I'm going to see if I can pull over and let this guy behind me go. And we're going to go down this way, and as you can see, the Fountain Drive is named after the family. And there is still a cedar top sign there. It's a different cedar top sign. Now this camp on the left was originally there was another camp there that was Brookside, and they took that down. Yeah. They took it down. That's a new camp. And then Mallory's was Bayview. And part of that actually still stands, and this was all our campground. This campsite on the left was campsite 6, and it was a pull-through. And then there's a little what's left of a vestige. That was campsite 8 up here where this cabin is. And then this roundabout up here was campsite 10. This was campsite 10, and then it overlooked, that was our house way down there. But it's all changed. Let me back up a little bit and I'll get out here. Okay, now that we got turned around, the camp that you see there, that was a trailer site, and that was trailer site number 12. The Abbotts used to be there. Let's go up this way as far as we can. There used to be a road to the right, which would take you up to the tent sites up on the hill, which is where Fern was. And they blocked off because this road used to go all the way around, and it's blocked off. Let's take a minute and I'll back up again. If you look up that way, that is the road that used to take you up to sites 18, 17, and 16. And that was, oh God, Fern Giles was up there. The Wilsons used to camp up there, and then if you followed it around, it would take you to campsite 16, which is where Gilbert's were. Let me take you around. We're going to see if we can not get into too much trouble here. I'll take you this way. One thing I noticed is that my horse's barn is still standing, misty blue. I will probably put some pictures in of that. That was Misty's barn. You can see the roof through the trees. That was her barn for, God, 5 years? 5 years. And in this road, you can just barely see and then this was Niles campground right there, and the campsite was right there. Andy's family. And then over here, hard to tell, was the trailer that Pixie Terry, sorry Terry Weifenbach, her dad used to have, and then he sold it to somebody else. But that used to be over there. And if you pan around, in between the tree and the barn, that was the Wilsons' old trailer. And I've got pictures of the trailer going in, of Dad putting the trailer in. But the road, I'm not going to go very far here, but I wanted to do this for John Leonard. If you're listening, John. All you can see, John, is the fireplace that your family built. You might be able to see it in the trees. So your fireplace is still standing. I believe that when I was here the last time, there's some outhouses that are still standing as well. It's I have very mixed feelings being here. I mean, this is the only home I knew for the first 18 years of my life. And as beautiful as it was, I think there's a reason why I don't like camping out in the middle of nowhere. Because we were pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. I'm just going to get down the driveway. I'm not going to disturb these people any. But I want you to see what my front yard looked like. And this house has changed a lot. They've done a lot of work to this house. And I will put some pictures in of what this house looked like. I'm probably trespassing, but you know, it's I put in 18 years here. That, my friends, was my front yard for the first 18 years of my life. And through the trees is Blue Hill. And one of the camper kids, Bruce Fryer, he put a name for it, and I'll get you a picture of that as well. He called it the pregnant lady, because if you don't have to use much imagination to figure it out. You can see her forehead, her cheek, her boob, her arm, her belly. And that camp down there, that was Lakeside, and that was my father's first camp, the first camp he ever built. And I have lots of pictures of that too. The first got it half done, got the outside walls all done, and hadn't done anything on the inside. And he took pictures of it. He was so proud of it. It was in the winter. And then the day after he took pictures, we got a foot of snow, and the roof caved in. So he had to rebuild it. But I'll put some pictures in of that as well. This hill right there used to be all of Misty's, one of the paddocks we had for my horse. And she had this whole hillside, pretty much. But I don't want to disturb these people too much. But like I said, I put 18 years in here. I think I have the right to at least come back. This will probably be the last time I come. Every time I come, I get a little sadder. Way up at the top of that hill, way up at the top of that hill, was Fern's tent camp. Fern was amazing. She was an engineer, and she did all kinds of things. She even had a water tower after a while. One last look. But yeah, this used to be the road that would take you to sites 15 and 16. And then it would take you up to Robideau's camp too. And it took, it also went to the house that my parents kept, the piece of land that my parents kept and built their cabin on. It led to that. And I think, if I remember rightly, you could make a connection there to go up to Schmidt's and Milford's and Reed's, which was all the way at the end of that back road. But that was Misty's barn. I think the barn's the only part left. He had a shed on the end too. And then this was one of Misty's, this was her main paddock, was right here. So if any of y'all campers are still with me, I know Terry's still with me, and Andy Niles is out there somewhere. John Leonard is up in Canada. And some of the Bucalos are still with me. And one or two Friars are still with me. This is what it looks like, guys. Kind of sad. But life goes on. Any of y'all campers that are still with me, you remember the old boat launch? That was the old boat launch. Dad launched a lot of boats back down there. And that cabin, I got pictures of Lakeside also. The thing about Paradox Lake is Paradox Lake floods in the spring. And it floods so bad that the water would get up within inches of the bottom of that cabin. You can't build cabins like that anymore on that close to the water. Let me see if I can give you a glimpse of the pregnant lady. Stephen Fryer and the Bucalos will recognize the pregnant lady. There she is. There she is, guys. The pregnant lady. Like I said, it doesn't take much imagination to see her forehead, her cheeks, her boob, her arm, her belly, and one leg. I remember one of the years when I was really young, she caught on fire, and they had helicopters flying in water bags to put the fire out on top of Blue Hill. And then I'll give you a little look of what used to be the dock area. I would go over to the beach, but that would be crossing a little too much. little more than I want to cross. And then y'all recognize that's where the lower road used to start. Used to go to the campsites that were on the lakefront. 1 through 5. 1 was Waters, 2 was Bucallo's. 3 was everybody's, Friars, Wilson's. 4, Dvorak stayed at 4 for several years. And 5 was the one closest to the cabins on that side. So I think this is probably going to be the last time we come in here. It's an emotional trip. And I know it is for all the campers that are left out there. I know John will get a tear in his eye. Maybe Steve Fryer will too. Nancy might too. But I will tag all of the camper kids that I still remember, that are still here, that I'm still in contact with. I'll tag them all. Let them see what's become of this, what once used to be one of the most beautiful campgrounds in the Adirondacks. There's Misty's barn again. I remember we got the horse before we got the barn built. She had to stay out at the end of the road at Hanchett's for a few weeks before we moved her in there. That was pretty solidly built. Dad built that. He built everything. He built all of the cabins here. Well, at least the ones that were here. So this was a site right here. Was the very first trailer Dad put in. That little trailer that he put the porch on. I've got pictures of that too. I'll throw one or two of those in there. And then if you pan to the right, this where they have the driveway going down. That was actually where the ice house was, guys. Remember the ice house? Y'all used to have to come up and get chunks of ice. Dad stopped doing that after people wanted little fractions of pieces of ice. You know, it was funny. One of the scenes that I remember is Billy Dvorak walking down the hill toward his camp with the ice tongs and a piece of ice in the ice tongs, walking back toward his camp along the lake. So the other thing that is kind of fun to remember is this was the turnaround. This is where my school bus used to have to turn around after they widened the road so they could bring the school bus in. They wouldn't pick me up at the door. I had to walk up the hill. It didn't matter what weather it was. If it was pouring rain, sleeting, I used to have to walk up the hill. And this is where I would pick up the bus. And then Site 10 would have been right there. And then if you go down the hill, that will take you down to what used to be Campsite 1, which was one of the tent sites along the lake, which are long gone. This is it, guys. We'll see what else we can find. Take you on your journey down memory lane in the Wayback Machine. So now we're going back out. Like I said, this was Campsite 7 on the right. And then this was Campsite 6, which the Longs had for a long time. And then on the left is the campsite that Suey's had. And the last time I was here, the outhouse was still standing. And I may throw a picture in there of that outhouse. Ah, I do see it. I do see it. So if you look real hard in between those trees, might be able to pick out that was that's the remainder of that old outhouse that was on campsite 11, which was Suey's. And then if you went right up the hill, which was a really steep hill, you would get to Fern's camp and the road that went around there. Now they've named this road Ledge Road because it's pretty tricky. It was always pretty tricky. So I see Reeds and Schmidt still own a piece of property out that way. My father sold to both of them. This was the road that you took to get out to that far end, and there were several camps out that way. And I think after Dad sold the campground, I think my cousin Kevin kept that road up for some years. And he would rake it because they had one of the camps out that way that they bought from my father. And Kevin used to grade the road. He's disappeared. I have no idea where he is at this point. Again, this was Brookside, and we had some interesting neighbors, and I think I'm going to take you out that road. The camp on the right, when my parents bought it, belonged to the Hendrys. And Mr. Hendry used to sing with Mitch Miller. Like I said, we had some... Like I said, we had some very interesting neighbors. This cabin has not changed much. This cabin has not changed much. That was Hendry's. And then this belonged to a family called the Kapners. It was the Hendrys and the Kapners. And that cabin, I also think, does not look like it's changed much. And I used to walk this road a lot when I was a child, and it's still a dirt road, and it's still very narrow. And it can be a little tricky, but it's not in bad shape. It's really not in bad shape. It's not that washboardy, so somebody's taking care of it. Now I remember over here, in here somewhere, there was an old rope swing that we used to come to, and we would swing off into the lake. Not sure who put it up. I think some of Helen's grandchildren, Helen Schwagerman's grandchildren, I think put it up. But it was over along in here. Now we're coming up on Schwagerman's encampment, and they owned the camp on the left, which they used to rent out. And then the camp on the right was theirs. Wow, it's changed. It has changed. Camp on the right is gone. On the left, in one of these two houses, one year there was this really neat, nice young hippie couple, probably the first hippies I ever knew. And I don't know if they owned the place or rented it. I really only knew them that one winter. Knew their dog was usually hung around when I was walking this way. And on the right was Esther Claus's house. She was the only other permanent resident here. And Polly's Perch, I think that family's name was Polly. It's good to see that they're still there. And then coming up on the left up here, there used to be a cabin that was owned by Paul Creer. And one winter he rented it to this older middle-aged couple. And they had a little girl with them that I'm not sure if she was a foster child or she was adopted. She was a little Eskimo girl, a couple of years younger than I was. And her name was Eve or Eva. So she was company for at least one winter. And then that was the last time I saw her. Very nice little family. And then coming up on the right is this little red house. That is Zonluter's bug house. It was owned by a family by the name of Zonluter. And it's nice to see that house is still in the family. It looks just the same as it always did. The funny thing about Zonluter's is that they had a bug zapper that if you were sitting on our front yard in the summer across the bay, you could hear that bug zapper. It was pretty funny. So I think that was part of the reason why the house was called the bug house. They had, I think, one son that was a couple years older than I was. And then coming up here on the right, again on the lakeside, was a family called Zetterberg, and they started. They actually were campers at Cedar Top, and they turned into seasonal campers pretty quickly within a couple of years. And then they bought a trailer, and they parked it on what used to be Site 9. And then when this property came up for sale, they jumped on it. And I think it's this house right here. They had 3 kids. The oldest was their daughter Carol, and then Bobby, their son, and then Lois was, I think, a couple years younger than I was. Really, really liked that family a lot. And as we keep going, this camp has been here forever, and I never knew who owned this one, but this one always intrigued me, this camp on the right. It always intrigued me because it just looked like it so belonged there. And we're getting toward the end. Now the camp that used to be at the very end, and I don't know what it looks like now, but I'll give you a little history of the people who had that one. We're almost to the end. We used to walk out this way. Helen's husband and the guy that stayed with them, they used to go fishing out here. This was Whitney Fields was out here. Now what was on this point, this is a very different house, but what was on this point was Art Benson's place. And Art Benson is the man who built Frontier Town. And this is a very different camp than what was his. Town Road ends here. Wow. But there used to be, we used to go hiking through the fields. This was Whitney Fields. I used to ride my horse through there all the time. It's changed. I mean, it has changed so much. The boathouse looks to be the same. That is Frontier Town colors. So the boathouse looks to be the same. I remember Edna. I used to stop and see Edna. She had St. Bernards, and she would be there sometimes. They would be there, you know, they would split their times between then and when they were at Frontier Town. They had a cabin cruiser, which seemed a little big for this lake. But, yeah, oh wow. This is definitely a trip down the time tunnel. About half of these places look the same as they used to. The other half are totally unrecognizable. That house back there may have been Zetterberg's too, or the other one. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly where they were, but I know Carol lived there for years permanently. I would say about 15 years ago, Carol and her husband were living there permanently. I really think it was this one. This was Zetterberg's. I really do think it was this one. It's nice to know that some of the places are still belong in the same family. That's really cool about Zonluders. That's really cool. Some of these places are just unrecognizable. I think that was Mark Gordon's, that gray one, but I'm not sure. I think that's who owned that one. Let me see if I can pull off here and give you a shot of the of Cedar Top. I might be able to do it through the trees. So there it is, guys. Used to be Cedar Top. I don't know if you can make out the beach from here. You can definitely see Lakeside, and you can see the house. You can see the big rock. And then if we pan around, you can just barely see the rock that was at campsite 5. We used to own all of that. Wow. So all you camper kids, ex-camper kids, that's what it looks like now. Going back out. It's been a lot of my life here. I am really, really happy to see that that is still Zonlooters. That just makes me smile. That just makes me smile. And it hasn't changed. It looks the same as it did back then. Mrs. Claus used to own one of these two houses. I'm not sure which one it was, but she used to own one of these two houses. Wow, I can't believe that oh my God, Schwaggy's house is gone. I can't believe Schwaggy's house is gone. Totally gone. But if you look in the distance, you can see the big rock. You can see the areas that were campsite 1 and 2. Well, 2 you could never see because it was up by the road. And 3 and 4. And then the dock area down there was where 5 was. That was all cedar top at one time. Yeah, this is pretty stark. Schwaggy's house is gone. Schwaggy used to have an float plane, and he used to fly over. They got rid of it after a few years. Helen was my unofficial art teacher. I used to go over and when I was a kid, and we'd sit and we'd paint on the front porch, and she'd make cookies and tea. And the Kapner's, and the Kapner's place looks just the same as it always did. So getting back to the cabin that belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Hendry, once he had passed and they got too old to be able to camp, and I don't think the grandchildren wanted it anymore, they sold it to a family by the name of Cox. And let's just say we were not fans of the Coxes. They, you know, our area had been so peaceful, and those boys, they had one or two boys, I don't remember how many, but let's just say there was an incident with a boat and one of their kids' friends that did not end well. It did not end well. Over here in this turn, oh my God, I used to go blackberry picking in there. All along in there, the power lines were great blackberry patches. I never worried about bears though when I was a kid either. I mean, it was funny. It was funny. I just never worried about bears. I don't think we ever saw a bear until I was like 16 or so, when the Leonards and the Gilberts saw a bear at night around their camps, Camp 16 and Camp 15. I used to ride my horse up this road every once in a while, but it was always marked private property. I never rode it to the end. Learned how to drive on this road. This was my testing grounds. Mother, I always used to drive with Mother. She was always in the driver, or she was always in the passenger seat when I was driving. I don't think I ever rode with Dad. And yep, Robin, does this look familiar? I believe you guys used to live there for a while. Well, I think we'll wind this up. Yep, I remember we used to that was my art teacher in school. We used to go out there, and mother and I would pick rhubarb. She had big, beautiful rhubarb plants. So hey gang, that was our trip through the time tunnel. Don't know if I'm going to do it again. It gives me a lot of mixed feelings. I loved growing up there in some ways. It was the most beautiful place in the world. In other ways, it was the loneliest place in the world. And every time I go, it changes a little. So I don't know if I'm going to do it again. Who knows? I might. But every time I go through, I keep saying, this is it. It's done. I've let it go. So maybe this time it really is the last time. So anyway, I want to thank you all for coming with me on this trip down memory lane. And any of you guys that used to camp there, please say hello. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you see anything that reminds you of what it used to be. Great memories. I had great memories of y'all. All of my friends who are on Facebook that I'm still friends with from that time, we all had great memories. So thanks again. Until I see you again, take care, and I'll see you down the road.